Well, I'm with Shaquana Cuttino today of the Cuttino Law Firm in Columbia, South Carolina. She has a statewide practice, focuses on family law, personal injury, estates, business formation, and a variety of other things. She's very active in her community. On a professional note, she's an excellent attorney, but on a personal note, she's a wonderful friend and colleague, and I love her family and her children and now grandchildren. So do want to introduce you. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your practice here in Columbia and across the state?
Well, Brendan, thank you so much for that gracious introduction. You're so humble. Thank you for saying all those nice things about me. And yes, I do have a statewide practice here in Columbia, South Carolina, but we're based in Columbia, but like you said, we practice all over the state of South Carolina. Our main practice areas are personal injury and family law, even though we do some criminal defense, complex civil litigation, business, like you stated, contracts and entertainment law. And so we're happy to be here with you today, Brendan. Thank you for that gracious introduction.
Oh, well, thank you so much. Can you tell some of the people who may be listening on your, website or on your social media, kind of tell them how you became a lawyer and started your own practice?
That is such an amazing question. Depending on who you ask, I was born to be an attorney. I can remember being in the second grade, and I just used to love to write. My second grade teacher, Miss Smith, who is now Mrs. Walsh, I'll never forget her. She believed in me so much. Every writing contest that the school had, whether it be for MLK Day or whatever, she would encourage me to enter the writing contest, and every time I would win first place. My second grade teacher told my parents that I was going to be a writer, a reporter, or a lawyer. And so then off to college I am, and my story's a little bit different than most attorneys. When I went to college, I was already a single mother of 2 children, 2 little girls. And I was in school to be a nurse. I had already gotten my CNA certificate, and I knew that I could go to school, come out, pass the state test, and make good money as a nurse. But my heart wasn't really in nursing. You've got to be a special person to be a nurse. And I don't like math. I don't like science. I was getting C's and D's. And lo and behold, my sophomore year, I went on my very first cruise with my 2 roommates who are my best friends now. And I met a guy, and he said, you're supposed to be an attorney. And I said, I've got 2 mouths to feed. I can't go back to law. I can't go from college to law school. And he said, you do what God calls you to do and let him handle the rest. Brennan, I didn't even know what to major in to become an attorney. He said, you major in criminal justice or political science. Off of that cruise, I went back to South Carolina State University, changed my major to political science with a concentration in pre-law, and the rest is history. My grades went from C's and D's to me graduating cum laude. And I graduated early. So that put me on my path to become a lawyer, went to law school, still a single mother. There you have it.
And so after law school, you came back to Columbia. This is where you're from?
Well, that's also a loaded question. So my dad was military. I was born in Würzburg, Germany. I've lived everywhere, Georgia, Washington, Kentucky, Michigan. My parents are from Georgetown, South Carolina. So I came back to South Carolina.
And did you just open your own practice, or how did that work?
I immediately, after I took the bar and I passed the bar, I immediately hung my shield. I knew that I could not work for anybody. Yeah. I like to be my own boss. And so, yeah, I opened my own practice immediately. I think I got sworn in on January 7th, and we were in business January 7th.
And there's a bunch of young people taking the bar right now in South Carolina. So the bar exam started yesterday, and it's going to be today as well. And there may be a third day. It's been a little while since I've taken it, but it was 3, and now it may be two days. But do you have any advice for young people who are just getting out of law school, who want to learn how do you do that? How do you start a practice? Do you ask people? Do you seek advice from people who've done it before? What do you do to make sure that you know what you're doing and can build a successful practice?
You've got to have a great mentor, or 2 or 3 or 5 or 10. You cannot make it out here by yourself. Some of us have parents who are lawyers, and we were kind of born into it, and we kind of learned the ropes growing up. My 21-year-old daughter is now in law school, so she's kind of going to have a leg up because, of course, we're teaching her, you and me. But for those of us who didn't have that, because I didn't have that, you've got to find someone in the profession that doesn't mind teaching you and being patient with you. And I've been blessed to have people like you in my life who serve as that for me, because without people like y'all, I would have fell flat on my face, because of course there's a lot of little nuances, right?
Yeah.
You take the bar, you go to law school, but does that make you practice ready? No, not normally. So you've got to have good people, and you cannot be afraid to ask questions.
That's what I was going to say. I think the number one thing to being a lawyer, starting out there, is never be afraid to ask questions. There's all sorts of people who are incredibly gracious with their time and
Right.
want to help you, want to help me, want to help everybody get better and be the best lawyers that we can be. So I think that's really good advice.
I
That's
agree.
something that I've tried to pride myself on. Is I've had some great mentors. I still contact them all the time. In fact, one of the nice things about Richardson Thomas, where I practice law at now, is that some of those mentors are my partners, and so I can walk down the hall and ask them questions. I also have people like you and others who I can call and ask questions, bounce ideas off of, and I think that is just a tremendous resource, and something that people need to find. If somebody says no, ask the next person.
The next person.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I agree.
So one of the things we wanted to talk a little bit about today is some of the cases that we've worked on together over the years. And I've really enjoyed working with you, and then also building a personal friendship with you and your family. But do you want to talk a little bit about how we started working on cases together and what that's been like for you?
So that's such a funny story, because we have something, as you know, called listservs in many different areas of law. So if you're practicing family law and you have a question, you can go out there to the family law listserv and ask your question. You've got generous attorneys who will answer you, and so I was on the listserv looking for someone to work a elevator malfunction case with me.
Yep.
And I had tons of lawyers, and I mean a lot of lawyers responded to me. A lot of lawyers called me. And I can remember my first conversation with you. And you said, Shaquana, I don't know much about elevators, but I'm willing to help wherever I can. And that meant a lot to me, because some of the lawyers were seasoned in that area, but I'm an energy girl.
Yeah.
And I don't care how much experience you got. I don't care how much money you have. If I don't vibe with you, I can't work with you. And so I said, well, that's not the only case I need help with. And I began to tell you some of my other cases, and you were just so gracious and so generous and so patient. We began to work together right then and there. I think we started that day or that week, and it was from a listserv. So I like to say God brought me to you, because, again, there were tons of other lawyers responding to me, and I didn't work with any of them except you.
And what's that experience been like, working with me? And I'll talk about my experience working with you.
Yeah.
But what has that experience been like for you?
It's been amazing, because some lawyers, when you do co-counsel relationships with them, they take over the whole case.
Yeah.
And what that leaves the person who's asking you to be co-counsel with is you're never going to learn how to do it, right? So if I call lawyer X law firm and I've got a case and I need co-counsel and they take it over, how am I ever going to learn? So one thing that I have enjoyed about working with you is that you actually teach, you don't gatekeep, right? Yeah. Some lawyers, and not our South Carolina lawyers, because none of us are like this, wink, wink, but some lawyers will not want to teach you so that you stay dependent on them. Yeah. I've not experienced that with you. And you always push me, even when I think that it's something that I'm not familiar with, so I can't do it. You're like, Shaquana, just do it. You're going to be fine. And you always tell me you can't mess it up. And being thrown out there into some of those things like depositions and stuff that I'm not too familiar with, it's been a teaching experience, and I want to learn.
So I always like to say, whenever somebody reaches out about a co-counsel relationship or a particular case that they want help with, whether that's just for advice, I always try to answer the phone and just give advice if need be. If somebody's like, hey, I want help with this case, one of the things I ask them, I say, is, number one, we are willing to do whatever it is you would like us to do. If you want to be involved in every deposition, in every motion, in every facet of the case, more than welcome. We're open book. Let's share everything and work on it together. If you say, hey, this month or this year I got too many cases and I really just need y'all to take the ball and run with this thing, and call me when it's time to call me if you need advice or client liaison or whatever that may be, we can do that option as well, or we can do something in the middle. And so I think that's important to have that respect, because ultimately if you're going to work on a case with somebody, that's your client, that's your reputation on the line, and you need somebody who's going to treat those clients and yourself with the respect and deference that you deserve. So,
absolutely, and that has been my experience with you from day one. You do give those options, and my clients that I've brought to you absolutely love and adore you. You've always treated them with respect, white glove service. So that's been my experience. Yeah.
And do you find that, one of the things I also tell people is, your clients remain your clients. And some lawyers will try, or just won't communicate with you or won't have the clients communicate with the referring attorney as much as the referring attorney would like. And I think that we always try to say, hey, you call Shaquana, call me, but your first call needs to be Shaquana. If something happens, if you need help, if your family needs help, this is who you call. And, we're always happy to work on things together if necessary. But, well, I'm glad that you've had that experience, because that's what I've been really intentional about trying to do, because we look at not only the personal friendships but long-term relationships, and that's something we want to do for a long time.
That's right. I agree.
So let's talk. We've helped quite a few people over the course of the last 4 or 5 years.
Absolutely.
We helped a young man who was injured by in a police chase. Mm-hmm. So the police were chasing somebody through a residential area. Do you remember this case?
I'll never forget it.
Yeah. And they were going 100 miles an hour. It was broad daylight, 5 o'clock in the afternoon. The man who they were chasing had stolen a vehicle from a gas station.
2 kids.
Yeah, there were 2 kids. Yeah, they were like 15 or 16 years old, and they were going for a joyride. It was rush hour traffic. Mm-hmm. The police were chasing them, going 100 miles an hour, and ultimately went through an intersection and hit one of your clients. Mm-hmm. Got hurt pretty bad. Luckily, all things considered, he was relatively okay. Mm-hmm. But we were able to work together and made a substantial recovery for them, and I think they were very happy.
Yes, they were absolutely very happy, and they've been back to us numerous times for different reasons since. I think we've got lifelong clients.
I love that.
Yeah.
What's one of the other cases that sticks out to you in your mind that you've either worked on by yourself or we've worked on together?
Well, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're doing great. Wait, you're going to edit this out, so
I know. I took my beer out of the camera because I was just like, some people.
Well, that's exactly what they're going to think.
Yeah, well, exactly. Yeah.
So, one of the cases that stands out to me is going to be the case where a little girl was burned by a faulty water heater. And one of the reasons it sticks out to me so much is because I'm a mom. And that could have been one of my children. I have a 21-year-old, a 20-year-old, and 2 7-year-olds, soon to be 7 and 8. And this little girl was just trying to take a bath. And she got burned so bad. And the thing about it is, there's a lot of slumlords here for whatever reason now.
Yeah.
And it of course, money is great, right? I always say money isn't everything, but it does help you to take care of the people who do mean everything to you. So before we even talked about money, it was about justice. Because how dare you slumlords keep allowing things like this to happen in our jurisdiction, in our counties, in our state? And you're getting away with it. So this mom was already my client. I had just settled a personal injury matter for her, and she kept on telling me about her daughter being burned. And of course, as a mom, my heart went out to her. But because of the laws of this state and sometimes how they're interpreted, I knew that, premise liability isn't easy to win. And I won't say I ignored it or put it to the back burner, but I'm thinking in my head, there's not much I can do, right?
Yeah.
But this mom kept talking to me. And, I'm a believer in God. And the Lord said, well, just see what you can do to help. And I presented it to you, and immediately you went to work on it. And we got her a substantial settlement that's going to change her life forever. And we stuck it to the man, the slumlord. So I'll never forget that. And it ended in a multi-million-dollar settlement, which is great.
Yeah. So, obviously I remember this case very well. And I remember you calling me and telling me about this young girl who got burned while taking a bath. And at the same time that this happened, I had a newborn. So my son is now going to be 4 soon, but at the time he was a newborn, and I knew what it was like taking baths and trying to bathe him and dealing with the water temperatures. And I just could not understand how the water had gotten so hot.
Right.
And I had worked on a similar type case before and knew of some that had occurred. And so the first thing that you and I did is we said, okay, well, we need to test the water temperature.
Yeah, we went out there and got a thermometer from CVS and tested that water.
Yep. And then right after that, we hired an expert, had them come and do a full physical site inspection, had them inspect the water heater, have them inspect the plumbing systems. But what was interesting is they had actually discarded the water heater. By the time that we went out there and actually did our inspections, the water heater had been destroyed.
Right.
And there was a big question about that in the case, why that happened, whether that was just a further sign that people were not trained, that they didn't understand how this actually occurred, or didn't know how to look into what actually occurred, or whether it was something more sinister.
Right.
Regardless of what it was, it had been destroyed. So that made the case much harder.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, how do we prove what happened when the evidence has been destroyed?
Discarded, yeah.
And so our experts got to work, and you and I were talking about it, and there were a few different devices that are supposed to protect children from excess water heat. And there's also a bunch of standards out there that regulate how hot water is allowed to be. So our expert knew those. We got to work on that, and what we did is we found a math equation that could tell us how hot the water is based on how long the child had been exposed. And so that was the first thing we did. We said, okay, we think we can prove that the water was too hot. Right. The next thing that you and I had to overcome was, how do we prove that it was the apartment complex's negligence, not negligence on the behalf of a parent or another child? Right. And I think that's where you were critical in the case, because you had this excellent relationship with the client, which many of our co-counsel do. And so you fostered that relationship to get to know them and understand what their life was like, what things they would do, what their routine was, and whether or not this could have been something that one of them had changed the water.
Right.
And that's an invaluable connection that you're able to form, but it also helps us with the damages. How do we prove the suffering that this little girl went through? How do we prove the suffering that, because little children, when they get hurt like that, they don't talk a lot.
Right.
And so your relationship with them kind of helped open up those doors, that trust, to be able for us to prove that. So that was the next thing we had to overcome. And I think we did a very good job of that. And ultimately, we did a mediation.
Where they played in our faces.
Yeah, and they never offered us a single dollar.
Right.
And so A few years later, they ultimately ended up paying us $4 million. And you're right, it's not about the money. But what this little girl went through, it's a big
a big deal.
It's a big deal for her, what she's gone through, what she's going to need in the future.
Yeah.
And it also shows the power of preparation. Because we were prepared to try the case, we had focus grouped the case, we had all of the exhibits ready to go, openings, closings, cross-examinations. Because we were prepared, this little girl didn't have to go through reliving this whole thing again for another week, you know. And we would love to try the case.
Right. You were ready. You were dead.
But
Yes.
when you get that kind of a result for this family, it was just
well worth it.
It was so nice to be able to work
And
with
another
you
thing
on
that sticks out in my mind about that case, Brennan, is that our expert actually found other deadly things in that apartment. Remember, the kids were having headaches, and wasn't there a carbon monoxide leaking in that house, in that apartment?
There was, yep. So our expert went out there, and he's like, something's not right. Carbon monoxide is odorless, but he instantly was having a headache within 15 or 20 minutes. So he brought out a carbon monoxide detector, and sure enough, found that the new hot water heater was improperly installed. And because of that, we sent a letter, you and I sent a letter to the apartment community, and may have saved their lives because they went in and had to remove that. It was leaking a substantial amount of carbon monoxide into the apartment. So
the case was even bigger than the lawsuit that was filed because, like you said, their lives were at stake. So I'll never forget that case.
Yeah, we were able to help them. So one of the things that I did want to talk to you about a little bit is that some people may have a reservation or concern about bringing other people in to help with a case, and I'll tell you this, you know, you and I have other cases together, and there's times when I'll bring somebody in. If there's somebody local who I know is the right thing, it's all about doing what's best for the client.
That's it.
And if you have that trust and can work with people and you're doing what's best for the client, that's what's the most important. But what would you say to somebody who has reservations about bringing in other people onto the team to work to try to get more money for a client, or what kind of value comes when you bring in people who have tried these cases and gotten good results?
Man, Brennan, it's people over profit. If you keep that mindset, you will never mind reaching out for co-counsel. I've seen cases where lawyers, they might be able to do okay for their client, right?
Yeah.
But if they put their pride to the side and reached out for co-counsel, they could do amazing for their client. Some people have this mindset, well, I don't want to split fees with anybody. I want all my money. Well, look, you can keep your $50,000, right?
Yeah.
Or partner with someone with resources and experience, which is invaluable, and turn that 50 into 200, right? And so that's just always my mindset. People over profit.
Yep.
And I don't say, you know, go partner with everybody who says partner with me. You've got to vet these co-counsels, right?
Yep.
But don't be afraid to. People over profits all day.
And we all have our niches and things that we learn about. One of the ways I like to think about it is a pie. First off, my number one duty is always to the client. The more compensation I can get for the client, the better.
Right.
Because that is ultimately the goal. But for people who are concerned, I sometimes think about it as like a pie. And I say, listen, we're making the pie bigger. Your slice might be a smaller percentage, but it's of a bigger pie.
Of a bigger pie.
And when that pie's bigger, ultimately the client does better, the referring lawyer does better,
Right.
everybody does better.
Right.
And so that's one of the nice things about it. And you get to help people, and it's fun to work with people.
Right. And then you have a chance to change the law, right? Sometimes if you've got something on appeal, and like I have something on appeal right now in the elevator case, and you get to change lives but change law, right? And so that's all of that is important, very important. Well, you can't do it on your own. Not all the time.
Nobody can do anything
Yeah.
always on their own,
Right.
you know. And I've had a lot of help, and I know everybody I think who's successful has had a lot of help.
You gotta have a team.
And that's one of the nice things about our state is that it is overall, when you look at other states, people share, people want to help as much as they can.
Yeah.
And it's really nice.
It is.
So I want to go back to a little bit about your practice. Why don't you tell us or tell me what one of your favorite cases outside of the personal injury space is, or one of the most meaningful cases that you've gotten to work on?
Well, I can't pinpoint one specifically out of my practice, but my family law cases mean everything to me. All of my cases mean everything to me. Yeah. But when you're working with families, families are the crutch of society, right? If families fall apart, societies fall apart. And so being able to work with families where sometimes the parents are on the brink of divorce, right? I've been able to put people back together again. I don't just focus on, oh, you want a divorce? Let's do it. No, do you really want a divorce? We've had clients who I've told my sister, who's also my paralegal, they don't want a divorce. We get all the way to the final hearing, and I lie to you not. The judge says, is there anything I can do or this court can do to help you reconcile this marriage? And they look at each other, they start bawling, and we walk out and nobody's divorced. The case is dismissed, and the family goes through counseling, and years later we hear from them and they're doing great, right?
Yeah.
I get to help children to be adopted. That's a great feeling, to put a child with a loving home, right? So there's so many things that are great about doing family law, because I love children. I love children. I love family. So I would say my family law cases stick out a lot to me, especially when children are involved.
Is it true that the judges have like something special that they do for adoptions?
Yeah, a lot of them bring teddy bears to the final hearing. Absolutely.
I love that. I've heard that. Remember, I've never been to an adoption hearing, but I've heard judges talk about it very, it always brings a smile to their eye. I remember in law school, we had a judge, family court judge, who's now on the Court of Appeals, and he would talk about that. He would say that his favorite day are adoption days.
Yeah.
Maybe that's because all the other days were divorce days, but but adoption days, he said, were very special. And
they are. They really are. I also love doing estate planning, just helping people get their trust set up or their wills, because on the other side of that, I see a lot of people who don't plan and then they die and the families are fighting. So when I get to help someone prevent that, per se, I love that feeling. For sure.
Can you tell us a little bit about going back to the child who was burned? And the names are confidential.
Absolutely.
And also for their privacy, we don't like to talk about that. But can you tell us what it was like for them when you spoke with them and explained to them what this outcome meant for what they can do going forward?
The mother was ecstatic. I have not spoken to baby girl just yet, but I will. The mother was crying because what this means for her daughter is no more slumlord, right? Of course, everything is put in the trust for her because she's a minor, and annuities and things of that nature. But what that means for this little girl is that there's going to be a nice home purchased for her where the water heater is going to be installed properly and carbon monoxide ain't going to leak, and she doesn't have to worry about that. And her future is really secured. And I love the laws of this state that protect minors in their settlement so that mama, grandma, boyfriend, uncle can't run through her money. This is hers. Yeah. And so mom was ecstatic, and she was very, very, very grateful for our team going to bat for her and her daughter.
It always makes it special when the clients are grateful when they see how hard the process is, all the things you have to do to overcome the problems there.
They're very excited because school is about to start back, and mom is like, my baby's going to be able to get out the school bus and come, to her home. So they're really excited.
I think we need to go over there when they get the new house and do a little housewarming.
That would be great.
I think they would love that.
And see, that's the thing that's special about us. We think of things like that even
Yeah.
after everything is done and said and over. They remain with us even after.
Well, and I think that is a characteristic of people who really care.
That's right.
It's also I've always had that connection with clients, but even going to my senior partner Terry, he's worked on cases for 50 years, some of the biggest cases in the history of South Carolina, and he still calls one client a month on their birthday.
Wow.
Every single month.
That's amazing.
He writes letters to former clients. He'll just pick up the phone and call them, and he is very diligent about it.
I like it.
Big
I
case,
like
small case, doesn't
it.
matter.
Doesn't matter.
Just to see how they're doing, just to check in and keep those relationships strong, because when we're in the unique position where we get to help people.
Right.
And
I
we're
love
lucky
it. I love it.
Anything else you want to?
No, I'd say if you guys just want to kind of wrap it up officially on
Yeah.
camera, then something like I really enjoyed having this time to talk with you.
Did we give you what you're looking for?
Yeah.
Okay.
Lots
All
of
right.
content.
Okay, good. You're good at this.
Oh, you're great at it. We can do it again.
Yeah.
I just want to say thank you, Shaquana.
It's almost
I
Friday.
thought you said I was doing good.
We're thinking about the Bahamas.
That's right. But I do just want to say thank you for joining me, Shaquana, and
Anytime.
talking to me about your practice, what it's like to work together, and how we can make our legal community stronger and get the best results for all of our clients every day.
And thank you for having me, and thank you for working so diligently. I tell everybody, if Brendan's not here, he's out saving the world. I would recommend you to anybody. As a matter of fact, I'm recommending you to people all the time for Co-Counsel. You care about the client. Not only do you care about the client, you care about the attorney as a person as well. And that's not always the case. So thank you for having me. Anytime, I'm here.
Well, we'll just keep getting better.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you so much.